everybody. Welcome back to the Mindful of You podcast. This is episode 74, Lessons from Meet the Robinsons. So, if you were to ask me, Mallory, what's your favorite movie? 1, it probably changes frequently. 2, I will answer with Meet the Robinsons because that just became my choice for the answer to the question of what's your favorite movie. If pressed to really look at that movie and look at other movies and like really think about it, I might and probably would choose a different movie, but I do really love this movie, so I say it's my favorite. I think that there's a couple reasons for that. It's really funny. Like, some of the jokes and bits in this movie are just freaking funny. But it also just makes me cry every single time. I think it's just a story with really good people, and I love good people who are just trying to do the right thing. So, great movie. So I've got 4 lessons here. So it's going to be a short episode, but, hopefully you can, remember how great this movie is if you haven't seen it in a while and go home and watch it. So the first lesson I wrote down from Meet the Robinsons is being yourself can strengthen your community. So we've got these like crazy eclectic people in the Robinson family. You got like the weird twins and the plants. You have Grandpa, who always has everything on backwards. You've got the mom who's directing the choir of frogs, Dad the inventor, the guy with the train. There's just so many random people, but they seem to function pretty well together as a family, which I think is fun and great. And our families are one of our communities, and then we also have the broader community in wherever we work, or you know, the things we do. We've got different senses of community, but what I love is how drastically different these people are, how even weird you might think they are, and how they just are a family and they seem to really love each other. And if they're not being unequivocally themselves, then I don't know why they would act so strange. So I'm going to guess that they're being pretty true to who they are. You can see it in our main character, Lewis, that he hasn't gotten like quite comfortable with himself yet. And you can see his insecurity and everything, which understandably so, because, you know, he tries to be himself and then people don't like him and that hurts. And so you can kind of see the contrast when he's with the Robinson family of them trying to bolster him up and help him to be himself. And clearly he gets there because, you know, the whole future thing, and he's actually that kid's dad and all that complicated stuff. So he gets there. He gets there eventually. My second lesson from Meet the Robinson is look at the story you're telling yourself. So I think it's so funny. Goob is the guy, the little kid who eventually becomes the bowler hat guy, and he's like so convinced that like everybody hated him as a kid, and it shows a scene of him walking down the hallway, and it's like this kid's like, "Hey Goob, want to come to my house after school?" And he's like, "Cool binder, Goob, and you're awesome, Goob." And then the voiceover goes, "They all hated me." And it makes me laugh so hard every time, because just the contrast of clearly he was well liked at school is so funny. And I'm not saying kids don't get bullied or that there aren't people who actually experience things like that, but that was clearly not his situation. And so I just would encourage you to look at the stories you're telling yourself. Ask yourself, do I know this is true? And our memories like aren't super trustworthy all of the time either. So if you're telling yourself a story that's like hurting you or doesn't feel good, look at ways maybe you can lighten your story a little bit while still being true to yourself and true to what you believe, so that you can feel less bad about yourself, because there was no reason that group should have thought everybody hated him, because they didn't. We saw the video evidence. And so it's sad that he was going around thinking that when kids really did like him. So number 3, holding a grudge hurts you more than it hurts other people. So yeah, bowler hat guy is a hot mess. He's got horrible posture. And he's working with that weird evil hat invention. And his whole thing is like, he's like, Lewis ruined my life, and like, I'm gonna get revenge. And but he's living like kind of a sad life, because that's all he's focused on doing is holding this grudge. And most people who have grudges, it's not like 24/7, but if that person comes up, like, boy, you can tell that they're carrying something about them. Like, I've heard stories of like people not talking to their brother or sister for years and years and years and years over something so small, because they're just holding a grudge. And a grudge is hard because usually that indicates that there was some sort of wrongdoing, and maybe the other person like didn't apologize for that or didn't feel bad for that. And maybe you do have reasons you need to cut people off in life. But even if that happens, there's no reason to hold a grudge. You're still able to move on and say, yeah, you know, I don't interact with that person anymore, or they're not part of my life anymore. And there still doesn't have to be a grudge in place. I think what a grudge implies is that it's still controlling you. It still has some sort of power over you. It really bothers you. And things don't have to actively bother you anymore once you've made a decision about, you know, what you're going to do about it. And I think forgiveness feels amazing. And forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation with the person. But if you can forgive people, forgive yourself, I think that's a good antidote to a grudge, and doesn't necessarily dictate your next actions in regards to your relationship with that person. But forgiving them and knowing that you have moved on and you're no longer going to let that hurt you anymore can be really freeing. So I think Goob would have had a much better life if he would have been able to forgive Lewis or recognize that Lewis didn't mean to hurt him. But instead his life was overtaken by this craziness. But I guess I don't know what happens because they go back in time and fix it and all that stuff. So I don't know how his actual life turns out, or if I can break down the science behind the time travel and Meet the Robinsons. Okay, number 4, last lesson. I should have worn my Meet the Robinsons shirt. I think there's a couple podcasts like a little bit ago that I was wearing it. The shirt is says keep moving forward on it. And so that's the last lesson on here. Keep moving forward is such a great lesson. It's been said in different forms in other Disney movies. Like Anna says, do the next right thing in Frozen 2, which is such a sweet message. And I really attribute a lot of my progress in mental health to the mentality of keep moving forward. And keep moving forward doesn't necessarily mean, you know, shove it down, don't feel bad, don't feel your emotions, but it means, you know, wipe the tears away. When you're done crying, you are allowed to cry. But wipe the tears away and try again. And I think that there's a lot to be learned from the idea of being willing to dust yourself off and keep going forward. So that lesson alone isn't an antidote to everything in life, but for a lot of things, you just have to, you know, get up, try again, do it again, and keep moving forward. So watch Meet the Robinsons if you didn't watch it this week in preparation for this episode. It's a great movie. Bring your tissues. You're going to cry. Another great movie I saw, I don't know if I'll do an episode on it or not, but if you guys haven't seen If, the Imaginary Friends movie with John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds, wonderful movie. It's so good. So check it out. By the time this episode is released, I'll probably have seen Inside Out 2, but I have not seen it yet. I will probably do a lessons one on that. I'm assuming there's going to be some really great things in that movie. So thank you so much for listening. Have an amazing week. Bye-bye.